Welcome to this video presentation. This is dedicated for professionals who are working in dairy industry. Um, we have close to about 40 odd products are coming in from the milk as a source. As you see on the screen, a slight introduction as to what are the applicable regulations, the do's and don'ts for documenting the ISO 22000, which is revised in 2018. The standard, which covers 22,000 pertaining to the global standards, is there, which is there on the screen, which is 22,000. The International Organization for Standardization, we call it popularly as ISO, creates many types of standards um, which are applicable to over 150 countries. The basic purpose of this ISO is to come together and formulate a standard. So what is ISO 22000? It is a food safety standard, which is called Food Safety Management System, FSMS, that issues the management systems approach, as well as HACCP. The goal of ISO 22000 is to provide one internationally recognized standard for a food safety management system that can be applied to any size of the organization. Anything that is consumed inside the human being fit for consumption. Uh, a word about slightly misunderstood between ISO 22000, that of FS 22000. FS 22000 was originally called FSSC 22000. It has been shortened. We always believe in shortening things because of the communication speed with which we want to work. It's called FS 22000. Now, FS 22000 is a food safety certification scheme that uses ISO 22000 and PAS 220. PAS 220 is again a technical jargon that you all must be aware, and it leads to fulfillment of the standard 22,000, which was published in 2018. This documentation mandating the organizations to fulfill in any form, in soft form, hard form, was introduced with the purpose to create a system that could be a benchmark for global food safety initiative. So that's the story behind FS 22000. Now, dilemma is, what is ISO 22000 and FS 22000? Well, um, manufacturers are free to choose whether you want to have FS 22000 or ISO 22000. Your customer, okay, uh, typically they want GFSI scheme, then FS 22000 would be more appropriate. Uh, One thing you need to understand, that you will need to evaluate your market and determine which standard is more appropriate to you, and make your systems that the customers, B2B, B2C, will have a confidence that your systems have been scientifically designed and they are working with watertight compartments, watertight, uncompromised processes. Uh, FS 22000 applies only to food manufacturer. Please understand this. So if you are not a food manufacturer, uh, you got to go for ISO 22000. So that's the technical difference. Okay, you should be able to appreciate as you move forward in the documentation process. Uh, a quick as a practicing auditor, as a practicing consultant, few steps I have for you. Uh, you need to develop a development plan that covers uh, giving education on the requirement of the standard clauses, uh, whatever you have systems, right, from procurement to production to quality assurance to quality control to that of the logistics till the product reaches the final customer, right? You need to map that with the requirements of ISO 22000, 2018, the standard specification. Mind you, majority of my clients, uh, they always say, sir, the ISO doesn't give me formats. I always go back to them saying that no standard in this world would give you formats. Okay, your processes, your input criteria, your activities, your resources, your supervision, your man management, your activities, they need to have a criteria which you can put it in your columns and rows that fits control mechanism. If you want to copy XYZ company manual and put it in your systems, auditors won't take even a second to figure out as to what is the company where you copied the manual, the input criteria, and your input criteria. Obviously, there will be a difference. Like a human being, I may take 100 milligrams of an item which the other person would like to take kilos and kilos, right? But my mechanism works the way I want to manage. So it's the same thing. In ISO, the biggest traps the most of the practitioners go is to copy what the other person is doing, what the other organization is doing. It doesn't work. It doesn't work. Especially auditors like us, we would like to understand what fits your process. Like every human being is unique, every process will be different. Okay, and there are factors which I'll try to explain in the coming minutes. So after having a fair amount of planning as to what you want to impact your employees, including contractual employees, you need to have a comparison of your current system to the requirements of either ISO or FS 22000. Right? You need to have a timeline. Like you have 24 hours where you want to, when you want to get up, when you want to do your hygiene activities, when you want to do your routine activities, when you want to do work for getting some um, qualified work and a meaningful compensation, same thing. It happens. Okay. Then you need to develop an HACCP plan. That's very important. Okay. And then document your system. Okay. So the step starts to summarize what we're discussing on this occasion is have a training program for people, then assess what exactly you're performing as these were to that of the standard requirement, make a gap analysis, and then make a timeline boundaries as to how you want to cover this gap analysis with respect to the standard requirements and where you are, and start building the bridges. Of course, a timeline which you need to do it. And more important is HACCP plan, and carry on with your documentation work. So it's a simple mission oriented driving. Okay, the very important thing that you need to see, as you see on the screen, is you need to have food safety management. Very, very critical for you, right? This team will be active to design and develop uh, activities which aligns to FSMS, food safety management systems, and participate in continued management of this system. It works around the clock, without interruptions, with continual improvement as the prime focus. Then assign a management team, which we call it as a 22,000 steering team. The team will be active both in the development of the ongoing management systems and also continual improvement. What are the implementation steps? Uh, the implementation steps, like any other management system, whether you take a quality management system or environmental management system or food and safety management system or occupational health and safety management system or information security management system, these are all the ISO standards. Okay. The management can assign a team task to work on specific processes that must be documented as required in food safety management systems. Uh, as I was trying to tell you, you have a gap analysis which you perform, and from there, modify the process that requires your as is worked to that of requirements of food safety management systems. Then you develop the processes, and then you make a trial run as to what is the standard requirement and what is that which is you are performing as is where. That's where step one achievement can be recorded. Once you have a format which is aligned with the food safety management systems, you need to retrain, train, retrain people. Okay? But to show every day a mirror to them, this is the standard requirement, this is what we are following. So we are trying to merge, we are trying to mirror. That's the bottom line of this requirement. Now, once you do that, you ensure that no processes are excluded, no processes are semi circled. Everything as is performed and everything as required in the standard are mirrored. It's exactly what the standard wants and exactly what has been performed. So that's where the task for the teams, sub teams, sectional teams, functional teams, cross teams will work upon. Uh, then you have internal audits. Internal audits would begin with scheduling. As to in 3 year times, what is the schedule? And from schedules, you develop plans. And from plans, you try to educate people what is the execution responsibilities, accountabilities. Another day, the internal audit report must go to management and it must be clear cut. Okay. So it's basically within self trying to find out gaps from what you have done, a Herculean task. Okay. The steps of documenting as per this ISO 22000 requirement and what exactly you have been able to achieve from there on. So, like internal audit in ISO is like mapping what is required in the standard, mapping what is specified in the procedures, mapping what is there formatted which is approved by the management. Is it being conducted? Is it being healthy? Is it being integrated? The difference between typical financial audit or from an accounts audit, from that and ISO, listen carefully. ISO believes in evidence-based, whereas accounts, financial, costing, they're all projected. Not much credence is given on the evidence part, but in ISO, 100%, 100%, I repeat, is on the evidence-based. What is designed? What is input criteria? What is activity criteria? What is resource criteria? What is more important? Supervision criteria. If a person is not qualified, if a person is not being trained, if a person is not competent, you are wasting time, energy. In financial and accounting, it's all about projected. It can be speculative also. But whereas in ISO, it is the documentation, observation, more important, evidence-based. I hope you realize the difference between ISO to that of financial and accounting. They are a world apart. I hope I made it very clear. As you see on the screen, make sure all employees have basic understanding of what their processes are and what the standard requirements are. Last but not the least is a certification company. You name a branded company. Why branded company? Because they bring in international experts. Okay, thanks to pandemic, they cannot travel, but they can be on screen, like what I am trying to do with you. I don't have to travel, right? But that's how things work out in food safety management systems. So typically, what you see on the screen is the standard, which is published in 2018. Previous version was in 2005. Perhaps it took more than 12, 13 years to get this published because uh, so many changes have happened. The previous standard in 2005, which was published here, things were different. 15 years back, things were different. And this standard, when it got published in 2005, it took close to about 7 to 8 years. So imagine the legacy of previous world economy, previous food safety management practices, technology, occupational safety, quality management system. Leapfrog change happened in the last 15 years. That's the reason the requirements have gone to a step ahead. All these standards, let me make it very clear. Organizations may feel maybe a bit of skeptical. I'm not surprised. But what is important is these have been built up over 5,000 brains across the world, close to about a decade. Thousands of meetings, subcommittee meetings, sub-subcommittee meetings have happened. A voluminous, thousands of pages of technical, inputs have been given to the technical committees, which recommend the ISO to publish these new standards. So the way that ISO standards operate is just like Olympic Games. These have a bar. When the auditors look at how these bars have been estimated by the ISO implementers. Okay. Now, some companies may be on a bar 10, maybe 0. I have seen some ISO 22000 audits. I don't want to name the brands, but they're not even at 1 out of 10. The standard requirements are different. What they practice is as is where, but nowhere they are meeting and deserving a certification. The word deserving a certification. Okay, a lot of things happen in the process. How we as auditors look at the deserving factors, right? So we give pass wherever possible if they have met the framework of that clause, if they have understood what the framework of that clause is pushing you to take your performance bar from existing 0 level to 10. It's all effort. It's all efforts by auditors, by organization, the management, the stakeholders, the contractors, the suppliers. So it's a complete circle. It's a complete circle. Majority of you know gallery people who look at ISO thinks that you pay money, you get a certification. Not the case. That's a poor way of yourself because you're poor in understanding. That's the reason why you have said poor about ISO. So get rich, then you see the fruits, then you see the credibility, then you see the motivation, then you see the market acceptance. So the requirements are primarily is that an organization must develop an effective system that meets the requirements of the standard and document, implement and maintain the system. The system must be evaluated, updated to stay current. What requirements of this standard is that the management must be involved and committed to the food safety management system. Uh, they will write to the entire food safety uh, policy and be responsible to ensure that it is uh, communicated as it is written and push for implementation and raise the bar of performance. That's the bottom line of the policy. Is. It ensures that you not only develop the policy, but you also ensure that you push it for higher performance. Commit to perform a higher than what you are today. Uh, it also mandates you to have a regular meetings every 6 months to figure out what the standard requirements are, what is your actual performance, what is your actual business as is, where it's happening, and where does we move forward. Uh, what is important for us to understand is that if you are looking for ISO 22000 certification or upgrading from 2005 version to 2018 version, right? Uh, you need to keep upgrading your hazard analysis. You need to conduct frequent, what we call it as drills for conducting hazard analysis, establishing and maintaining the HACCP system, a healthy HACCP system, and verification of the activities, and the tracing the product and materials and distribution is one of the key elements of ISO 22000. So, what about the non-conformities? The new version in 22000 has mandated that you need to establish a document for controlling the non-conforming product. Uh, when a critical point has been exceeded during your operations, whatever process, okay, in the food safety, uh, you need to segregate the potentially unsafe product, and it needs to be identified, assessed, controlled, depositioned, and keep it aside. Okay, believe me, because these are all for the human consumption. You need to also have an established withdrawal processes that is necessary to quick action so that it cannot be clubbed with the ongoing dispatching work. Right. You also need to identify the corrections, okay, and corrective actions to be taken up to eliminate that the non-conformity which you have found during a shift or during an operation, and do any of the root cause analysis and see that it is fixed. And nowhere in the system, okay, such a lapse should be controlled. Okay, so origin of this non-conformity is very important in food safety management system, especially in 2018 version food safety management. Another thing which is very important in 2018 version is validation. Now, you need to establish from your as is performed processes a process to validate and control measures before you implement any changes, whether it is uh, change of line, a change of your uh, manufacturing processes, your raw materials keep changing, the quality of raw materials needs to be addressed in a different manner. Okay? To ensure that all the measuring and monitoring devices are established and methods capable of providing the accuracy is needed. So, what we are trying to give you advice here is that validation is very critical. You may have close to about 65 to 70 processes in your dairy production, right from the time that you bring your raw milk into the plant, right to the time that you are chilled the sachets which are uh, packed in your milk production, post milk production. Okay. This needs to be a continuous journey in terms of validating that the product is safe and it is secure for human consumption. The next issue that the ISO 22000-2018 is insisting is a verification product. Um, the documentation and internal audit must have uh, trained auditors and planned at regular intervals, maybe 3 months, 6 months. I prefer 3 months because the system needs to be continuously improved. So it's possible if you have the frequency of the audits um, at a rapid fire than waiting for 6 months. Okay, in a place in a times like pandemic, things change very fast. Okay, very very fast. Then implement the process for the food safety team to evaluate and analyze the verification of the internal audits and the recommendations and opportunities for improvement. So what is FSMS improvement is all about? Is about the management review. It's all about internal audits. It's all about corrective actions. It's all about verification. It's all about validation. These are the drivers for uh, the entire system to tell to the stakeholders that look, there is every cross check has been happening, okay, to ensure safety of the items which are produced inside the plant. Okay. Uh, we do many things in our services. Um, we do give workbook for uh, migrant workers in their vernacular language. We have e-portal which self-learning can be done up. We have PowerPoint slides for people to appreciate what the management is doing. We have continual training which you can request, and then the documentation. So our portfolio is vast to share our audit experiences. Our team has got close to about 12 qualified lead auditors in food safety management systems. They have been working in various food industries, various MNCs, uh, in Korea, in Malaysia, in China, in Thailand, in India, in Pakistan, um, in Europe, in Brazil, in Argentina, in US, and Latin American countries. So our team is quite robust to understand the challenges in various geographies in the world. And I take this opportunity to thank you for going through our video and understanding the ISO 22000 requirements. Please do not hesitate to get in touch with our administrative offices. To know more about me and our team, just hashtag GBSRA.